Hey guys, it's Holly. So this video is going to be incredibly hard to film because of the sheer amount of bricks, sets, and space that this is all going to take up. But I know a lot of you guys were requesting, but this is also something that I'd really wanted to do for a while, and that is to combine all of the 2021 sets with every single Hogwarts castle build we've gotten so far, besides the Room of Requirement. I will mention that, as well as the Flying Lesson, because it hasn't been released yet. So you might be wondering, where are they? Because there's no green roofs in sight. Now, if you didn't see my earlier video, which I posted just a few hours ago, I did end up swapping out all of the roofs into dark bluish gray and kind of talked about how expensive that process was and how many pieces I needed and how simple and easy it was. So if you want to check that out, I will leave the link in the description below, as well as in the cards. But this is what all of the sets look like combined once the roofs are kind of switched over from the sand green. Now, because of the Astronomy Tower and even just, I guess, the Great Hall in general, having those sand green ski poles, I did want to try and incorporate some of it. And even looking at it now, I feel like I will change some of the dark bluish gray cheese slopes over into sand green, especially looking at like the clock tower and the Astronomy Tower and the Great Hall and how they all have kind of accent pieces. For the clock tower and the Great Hall, you've got those tan ones, and then for the Astronomy Tower, you've got sand green. So I feel like getting rid of those dark bluish gray ones will just make it blend in even better, but the black roofs really tie everything in together. Now, last year in my Astronomy Tower review, I did end up putting all of the sets kind of side by side using Lego's system, but I learned that it's not really my favorite type of thing to do. I mean, it works and you can do it, but it creates this very long sort of display, and even now this is taking up my entire kind of IKEA desk. Like, this thing is very large, but one thing that I personally like doing, and I feel like is probably the most efficient way in storing these and kind of displaying them, is actually creating a lot of depth. So what I have ended up doing, at least in this kind of model, and I will talk you kind of through it and lift you around, but I've put all of the 2021 ones at the back because for the most part they're a lot taller, but at the same time you can also make them modular, so you could stack them up even higher if you wanted to and have a grand tower, which, do keep in mind, will be skinnier than the Great Hall's tower. So I don't know, it might look a bit out of place to me. I feel like the Astronomy Tower needs to remain the tallest one. I don't know, that's just my kind of personal preference, but that's the thing about the new one, is that it's so easy to swap it around, which I really like. However, the con with that system, especially when you do combine it with a lot of these older sets, is the fact that that system is very flat. I did an entire video just combining and trying out different combinations of all of the 2021 sets, and basically you get this giant wall of just tan, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, personally, I would rather have the three sections and kind of curve them and move them around, kind of like you've got at the front here, to give it that depth and make it look kind of less like the Great Wall of Hogwarts, for example. So that's something that I really wanted to account for when combining it with these older sets, because the nature of those sets is to kind of bend around, curve in and out. Like, they are kind of all interconnected, and for the most part you can take everything apart. I mean, the Great Hall's a bit of an exception there, but even with the Astronomy Tower, I didn't really want to remove much of it because I think it still looks really good as is, but also I tried to mentally map out how it would actually work. So you've got like the Great Hall on the right, just like in the real castle, and the Astronomy Tower more so to the left. The Great Hall's kind of at the back, but I didn't want to have the backside showing, so I've just kind of tilted it on the far right there, and that's kind of my method for getting all around this. Now, the hardest thing to incorporate into the kind of older style of sets is honestly that Great Hall Chamber of Secrets building, because a lot of those newer castles all have the rocks at the bottom. You kind of either need to put them in the front, which then you hide a lot of this beautiful buildings that we've gotten in the past, which I feel like depth-wise on their own are a lot more appealing of a display piece. So personally, I want to have them in the front. But another thing is just, we've already got a Great Hall. Like, these buildings look incredibly similar, so I kind of wanted to push it to the back, but then the Great Hall on its own doesn't really have a particular tower that stands too tall, so I didn't really feel right putting it on the right hand side, and there's this kind of gaping gap here from all of the Whomping Willow pieces. Some of the other pieces that I found kind of really hard to just incorporate in general was the door to the Chamber of Secrets, which I just completely cut rid of. I feel like that's just kind of its own standalone piece. The Room of Requirement as well, while it does connect, it doesn't quite feel right to me, but also that little bridge area in the Whomping Willow, and and one of my favorite things about the Whomping Willow is that it was a great in-between piece, but I feel like here there's a few too many small pieces for my liking now that we have so many large buildings. But let's go have kind of a close look at it so I can walk you through what I've done. So this is going to be incredibly hard to do, but basically on the right hand side I've got the Great Hall to start off with nothing really attached besides kind of this piece of the Whomping Willow here, which isn't really attached, it's more just kind of resting. Actually, no, never mind, I did attach that with a Technic piece. Then at the back we've got kind of the girls' bathroom and Chamber of Secrets slide section, as well as Lockhart's office, and a few balconies, as well as a tall tower, which for this one, there's not too much sand green, but there's enough that it fits in with the accents of the rest of the pieces. Kind of at the back here is where we've got the Chamber of Secrets, as well as the Great Hall. But as you can see, kind of from a height, all of these rocks kind of just look very out of place. These should be on the outside of the castle, and I feel like Lego's brought it in a bit too late now that it just doesn't quite look right. But luckily, if this is on a high enough shelf or you've got enough in front of it, you shouldn't be able to see it too easily, which I quite like. Over this side we have the Whomping Willow Tower, as well as the Astronomy Tower, which really has just remained exactly the same as it is. I love the height of this building and I really wanted it to be the one that stood tall, which is why I tried to keep all of the modular system quite short, or at least in the background, to give the Astronomy Tower that kind of moment of power and kind of dominance, I want to say. I mean, I'm really making this very dramatic for just, you know, a Lego building. But you get what I mean. Coming down to the right, we have the clock tower, which theoretically should be at the back of the castle, but I didn't really want to have it facing the back so you could see all of the inside. So I've just kind of tilted it way over to the side here. Honestly, the greenhouse was something that I really struggled to kind of put down and place. So I ended up putting another one of those Whomping Willow sections here. And then kind of trickling off the clock tower, we have the other clock tower section here, as well as that little kind of bridge gate section of the Whomping Willow, which, as you can see kind of from here, once again, it gives it a lot of depth. You've got layers and kind of things to this castle. It's not just one kind of flat across thing. It's definitely not suitable as a playset. Like, this is a very display kind of oriented setup, which for me is fine. If you're getting this set and you want to play with this set and you want to see the interiors, this really isn't going to work for you. Then again, I feel like the 2018 to 2020 system didn't do that in the first place. I mean, you could, but when it was all connected, it kind of became a bit harder to maneuver. At the very back behind the clock tower is where we have Fluffy and the Devil's Snare, as well as the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom and that little balcony here. And then you've kind of just got nothing at the back. It's all an illusion. There's also none of that kind of Yule Ball clock tower piece because I feel like it just doesn't really fit the vibe of the rest of the castles. But that's the entirety of what I've done. Now, you could also put this in a straight line because all of these pieces, while they're technically not connected in this layout, they can connect via Technic pins. So you can attach extra pieces. You can really rearrange it into whatever you want along with the modular system. Each of these levels has Technic pins which line up perfectly with all of the other sets. So it gives you a lot of customizability, but I feel like the way this is designed with the 2018 to 2020 system, you've got a lot more angles, a lot more like big pieces, whereas this newer one is a lot smaller, more modular, more flat. And at the end of the day, they are two very different systems, and while they can be connected and they can work together, I don't necessarily think they complement each other in terms of connecting. Looks wise, I think they complement each other gracefully. I think it's beautiful, especially with these dark grey roofs. It just makes the entire thing seem more complete, and with the amount of buildings that we've gotten now, you really feel like you've gotten a full Hogwarts campus. So there are all of the Hogwarts sets put together. Like I said, there's so much customizability with this. Like, you really don't have to stick to some sort of stock standard formula with this type of stuff. I mean, you never have, but here's kind of just a gist of what they do look like together. You can get a lot out of this. Like, there is so much playability when you put these things together, and I mean, rightfully so. Like, these sets all together are very, very expensive, so you'd kind of want that, and it does give you this very grand display. And I really highly suggest, if you do want to combine these systems, please go and change the roofs. Like I said, I will link that video down below, but let me know what you guys think of all of these castles connected. I really think it looks extremely grand. While it doesn't have that classic signature Hogwarts silhouette, it looks incredibly impressive. And I'm really glad that LEGO did make these newer sets able to connect to the old ones. I feel like there would be a lot of uproar if they didn't. I mean, just look at how kind of people are reacting over the sand green roofs. And while I get it, while I think they work, to me, dark grey is definitely my favorite. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel down below. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.